He came in at 5 a.m. every morning, never said a word. For 15 years, he cleaned the same hallways, and no one had ever asked who he was. Until that night when chaos broke out in the emergency room, he dropped his mop, rushed into the operating room, and started giving medical instructions to the surgeon. Welcome to the Living Stories. Before we begin this powerful story, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us keep these voices alive. St. Mary's Medical Center was Atlanta's largest medical complex. In its 12-story building, thousands of people fought for their lives every day. Doctors, nurses, technicians, everyone had a role. Everyone had an identity. But he simply existed. His arrival at 5 a.m. wasn't by chance. At that time, the corridors were empty, silent. Wearing his blue coveralls with his Atlanta Braves baseball cap on his head, plastic gloves on his hands, he would silently begin his work, pushing his cleaning cart. His name was Frank. At least that's what it said on his employee card. No last name in the records, just Frank Custodial Staff. 15 years. For exactly 15 years, he had maintained the same routine. He would start on the first floor and slowly work his way up. Every floor surface, every wall to be wiped, every window's shine. Everything passed through his hands, but no one ever chatted with him. Some would say, "Morning, Frank." He would politely nod his head. That was it. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had been a cardiac surgeon at the hospital for 8 years. Young, talented, ambitious. Every morning at 6:30, she would arrive at the hospital and have her first coffee in the break room on the 3rd floor. And every morning she would see the same scene. Frank slowly mopping that corridor. Head down, silent, calm. Once she had been curious. "Frank, how old are you?" she had asked in English. 68, he had said, short and clear. "You could retire by now, right?" "You need to keep working," he had simply said, and closed the subject. Dr. Sarah had found it a bit strange that day. Why would a 68-year-old man work so disciplined? Why come so early? But then she'd gotten absorbed in her own work and forgotten. Most of the hospital staff ignored Frank. He wasn't bothered by this. In fact, it could be said he preferred it, because silence was his best friend. But some things couldn't be overlooked just because they didn't attract attention. For example, that tattoo on his left arm. Sometimes it would show from under his blue coveralls, faded, old, and unclear mark of what it was. Most people wouldn't notice. Even if they did, they'd pass it off as an old military tattoo. Nurse Linda Rodriguez had been working at the same hospital for 15 years. She and Frank had started at the same time. She couldn't remember if Frank was more talkative back then. But she remembered this. In the early days, Frank's hands were very careful. When cleaning, when touching medical equipment, he was careful as if he knew what they were. Maybe he worked at other hospitals before, Linda had thought, and forgotten. Dr. Michael Torres was the emergency department chief. 45 years old, experienced, cool-headed. For 10 years he had seen Frank, but they had never spoken. Until that night. That night would change everything. November 15th, Tuesday night. It was 10:30 p.m. Frank was cleaning the upper floors. Few doctors on duty, hospital quiet. He loved such nights. No need to hurry, he could do every job meticulously. Just as he finished the 4th floor corridor and was walking toward the elevator, he heard the voice, "Code blue! Code blue! ER operating room 2. In hospital language, this meant life-threatening emergency. Frank's steps stopped. For 15 years he had heard these calls, but had never intervened in any of them. It wasn't his job. He just cleaned. But this time there was something different in the voice. Panic, real panic. Instead of taking the elevator, he chose the stairs. With quick but silent steps, he went down. There was chaos in the emergency department corridor. Nurses running, doctors shouting. "Where's Dr. Mitchell?" someone asked. "At home," we called, "but it'll take 20 minutes. Dr. Torres, in Trauma Bay 3, can't leave." Frank approached the operating room door. Inside, Dr. Jake Morrison, a young resident doctor, was struggling alone. The patient was a 35-year-old man who had been in a car accident with internal bleeding. "He can't wait 20 minutes," Dr. Jake was shouting. "We need to operate now." And at that moment, Frank entered. "What are you doing here?" Dr. Jake asked. Sweaty, stressed, desperate, Frank looked at the patient. He examined for a few seconds. Then in a calm voice, "Splenic rupture," he said. "Left lower rib area. You have 3 minutes." Dr. Jake froze. How did this man know? "Who are you?" Frank began washing his hands. Professional, quick, as if he had all the time in the world. Dr. Frank Thompson, general surgery, retired. Nurse Linda Rodriguez had frozen at the door. The custodian she had worked alongside for 15 years. Was he a doctor? "What specialty?" Dr. Jake asked, still in shock. "Trauma surgery, combat field experience." And at that moment, everything became clear. Frank's hands, his approach, his calmness, everything fell into place. "Can you help?" Dr. Jake asked. Frank nodded. Of course. When Frank entered the operating room, he seemed like a different person. His hands weren't trembling. His eyes were clear and determined. The 15 years of silence seemed like they had never happened. "Nurse, prep 4 units of blood. Type O negative," he said with authority. "Where's anesthesia?" Dr. Jake asked. "No need. Local anesthesia will work. Time is the critical factor here." Dr. Jake was looking with amazement. This man really knew what he was doing. "How do you—" Questions later. Focus now. And the surgery began. Frank's hands seemed to have returned to 15 years ago. Every movement precise, every incision perfect. Dr. Jake was trying to help but was actually learning. This 68-year-old man was much more experienced than himself. "Spleen is completely ruptured. We need to remove it," Frank said calmly. "But no arguments. Either we remove it or we lose him." The surgery lasted 30 minutes. For 30 minutes, Frank worked just like in his old days, steel in his hands, determination in his eyes. The patient was saved. When the surgery was over, Frank removed his gloves. Dr. Jake was still in shock. "Thank you," he said breathlessly. "You're welcome. But you're the custodian." Frank smiled. He was smiling for the first time. "That too." Dr. Jake didn't understand. "What do you mean?" "I retired 15 years ago, but I missed hospitals, started working as custodian." "Why didn't you tell anyone who you were?" Frank thought for a while. "Because it wasn't necessary. I came here to clean, nothing else." The nurses and doctors gathered at the door were listening silently. Linda was now learning who the man she had worked with for 15 years really was. "But now? After this?" Dr. Jake asked. "Now it's the same. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. I'll come and clean." "But you're a doctor." "I'm both a doctor and a custodian. Same honor in both." The next day, there was a different atmosphere in the hospital. Everyone was talking about Frank. When he arrived at 5 a.m., Dr. Torres was waiting for him. "Can we talk?" Frank nodded. They sat in the break room. Dr. Torres asked curiously, "Where did you work before?" "Emory University Hospital, Chief of General Surgery." "When did you retire?" 2008, I was 53. "Why so early?" Frank paused a bit, then he showed the tattoo on his arm. "You know what this is?" Dr. Torres looked carefully. Faded, old, but the shape could be distinguished. Military medical cross with writing around it. Medical Corps tattoo. Combat medic insignia from the field. Which war? Iraq. 2003 to 2006, Coalition Forces Medical Unit. Dr. Torres's mouth fell open. You served in combat? 3 years? Field hospitals, surgery under fire, saved lives in tents. "Why did you come back?" Frank's eyes welled up. Because I saw too much. Too many young people died in my hands. When I returned, I couldn't go back to normal. Had to retire early. That afternoon, all senior staff were called to a meeting. Chief of Staff Dr. Robert Hayes had opened Frank's file. Colleagues, last night we had a hero among us, and we didn't know for 15 years. Frank's resume was on the projector. Medical school graduate. 1982, general surgery residency completed 1988, chief of general surgery, Emory University Hospital. 1995 to 2008, Iraq War volunteer surgeon, 2003 to 2006. 847, successful operations on record, military medical commendation medal, early retirement due to PTSD diagnosis. Everyone in the room was silent. For 15 years we never saw this man, never asked who he was, just passed by as the custodian. Dr. Sarah raised her hand. What do we do now? We'll offer him to return to surgery, of course. But Frank declined the offer. Why won't you come back? Dr. Torres asked. Frank was drinking his coffee in the break room. Because I'm at peace here. But you're a doctor. Being a doctor isn't just in the operating room. I'm doing medicine here too. How? For 15 years I've been wiping tears of families, giving hope to people waiting in corridors, quietly, unseen. That's medicine too. Dr. Torres understood. Then why did you intervene last night? Because it was necessary, just like cleaning these corridors is necessary. That day, a new arrangement was established at the hospital. Frank was still a custodian, but now he was also called as a consulting physician in emergency situations. Months passed. Frank's story had become legend at the hospital, but he still came the same way. At 5 a.m., silent, humble. One day, a young medical student asked him, Frank, do you ever regret it? Leaving your career and coming here? Frank put down his mop. Son, what's fame anyway? I was saving lives then. I'm saving lives now. But then you were in war. War isn't different from here. There's a battle between death and life there, here too. I carried hope there. I carry it here too. Then why didn't you speak up all these years? Frank smiled. Because real heroes don't shout, son. They work quietly. Today, Frank still works at St. Mary's Medical Center. He still comes at 5 a.m., still cleans with the same meticulousness. But now everyone knows who he is. And most importantly, now everyone understands that real heroes aren't always what they appear to be. Sometimes the most ordinary-looking person has the most extraordinary past. Sometimes the quietest man carries the strongest story. Frank taught us this. Heroism isn't just done on battlefields, but also in hospital corridors, not just in operating rooms, but also while cleaning. And most importantly, real heroes never shout. They just do their job, quietly, humbly, but with determination. So have you ever encountered someone like Frank, someone ordinary-looking but with an extraordinary past? Share their names in the comments, tell their stories, because at the Human Stories, we believe that the most powerful stories don't shout, they wait. The most valuable people aren't flashy, they're real. If this story moved you, subscribe and share. Help Frank's story and others like his be heard until we meet in the next story. And remember, if you ever encounter an old man cleaning at a hospital, look at him a little more carefully. Maybe he's carrying not just a mop in his hands, but lives too.